The stars flickered like dying embers in the black ocean above as the last human warship drifted silently across the void. It was called the Gravemind, a name the alien conquerors gave it after its crew slaughtered an entire Valari fleet in what was supposed to be humanity's final defeat. But instead of surrendering, the humans had detonated a quantum core mid-battle, tearing a hole in space and taking every Valari ship with them, or so they thought, until now a static-laced transmission echoed through the bridge, a faint, broken whisper repeating a phrase no one wanted to hear again. "This is Commander Rowe. We are still here." Captain Eris Vance stood motionless, jaw clenched, as the comms officer slowly turned to her, pale. "Ma'am, it's real. The Graveman's signal. It's broadcasting from the edge of Sector Null." "That's impossible," Eris muttered. "That ship was vaporized 17 years ago." But the signal pulsed again, clearer this time. Humanity refused to kneel. A sudden silence fell over the bridge. Everyone remembered those words. It was what Commander Rowe had shouted moments before his ship vanished in that suicidal blaze of glory. The Valari had broadcast it across the galaxy as an example of human defiance, then tried to bury the story. When their own soldiers began to question the war, Eris stepped forward. "Plot a course. We go to Null." The crew hesitated. Everyone knew Sector Null was forbidden space. Valari hunting parties, dead systems, shattered moons, and the rumor that the souls of broken machines whispered there. But no one spoke, not when their captain had that look in her eye. The journey took 6 days. On the 4th day, the lights flickered. On the 5th, someone started humming an old Earth lullaby in their sleep, though they swore they hadn't heard it in years. On the 6th, the Gravemind appeared. No one saw it arrive. It was just there. A massive, rusted hulk, hovering at the edge of a collapsed star like a forgotten god. Scans showed no life signs, but its power core was active. They docked cautiously. Eris led the boarding party, herself 3 soldiers and an AI drone named Nyx. The corridors were cold and empty, but not decayed. Everything looked preserved, untouched. A faint hum echoed through the halls, like a heartbeat beneath steel. Then they reached the bridge. It was pristine, and Commander Rowe was sitting in the captain's chair, staring out into the stars. A live dot, except his body didn't move. His eyes were wide open. A breathing tube pulsed softly at his neck, and wires ran from his spine into the chair itself. Nyx scanned him. "He's alive," the AI whispered. "But not here. His consciousness is fragmented, stretched, held." Eris stepped closer. "Held where?" Rowe's lips moved. "Just once." A faint whisper. "They never left." The light snapped out. Sirens screamed. The ship lurched. A Valari war chant began echoing through the Holland, impossible sound, because no Valari vessel could have reached this dead system in time. Then came the second impossible thing. A child's voice. "Mum." Eris froze. That voice, that tiny voice. Her daughter had died on Mars during the purge. She'd seen the body. She'd buried her herself. "Help me, Mum. I'm cold." Eris staggered back. The air thickened. Her team started shouting, weapons raised as shadows flickered in the corridor, shapes wearing human faces, but not human anymore. Nyx sparked. "This ship isn't empty. It's a prison." "For who?" Eris whispered. "The ones who said no." The hallway behind them twisted, bending like melting steel. Time began to unravel. Nix screamed in machine code, pushing coordinates into Eris's neural HUD. We have to go, now. But the bridge door wouldn't open. The gravity reversed. One soldier vomited blood. Another screamed as her eyes turned black and she collapsed, whispering a name that wasn't hers. Eris turned to Commander Rowe. What did you do? His eyes flicked to hers for a second. Only a second. And in that moment, she saw it all. The Gravemind had survived the core detonation, but it hadn't returned to real space. It had fallen into a fracture between realities where time bent, and memories bled into matter. And Rowe had made a deal. A last stand that never ended. A war of will against entities older than stars, who had demanded humanity's kneeling submission in exchange for peace. He had said no again and again and again, trapped in an eternal loop of defiance. Now the fracture was leaking, and they were coming through. Eris grabbed the last living soldier by the collar. Blow the beacon. Now, if they find a way out, the ship trembled. It was too late. Across the stars. In Valari High Command, every communications array lit up. At once, from dead systems, forgotten battlefields, human graveyards, the same message, repeated endlessly. Humanity refused to kneel. And then, Earth vanished from every star map in the galaxy. The Valari Emperor stood before a council of panicked warlords, his 6 golden eyes twitching in disbelief as the star charts updated in real time. Earth gone, not destroyed, not moved, simply erased, as if the world had never existed. And yet, across the Empire, humans whispered in the shadows. Their message carried on outlawed frequencies and dying satellites. Humanity refused to kneel on the Gravemind. Eris was no longer certain what was real. The ship had no stars outside its windows, no only a swirling veil of black light, alive and watching. The last remaining soldier, Jace, had stopped responding. He sat in a fetal position near the helm, whispering riddles in reverse while drawing patterns on the floor with his own blood. Nix's systems flickered as the AI fought back some unseen corruption, her voice lagging with digital shivers. "Captain," she said finally, "we are not in space, we're in memory." Eris gritted her teeth, whose a hatch opened with a hiss, not a sound of mechanics, but of breath. A human child stepped through her face, perfect, familiar, impossible, her daughter Anna, the same age as when she died. She smiled with empty eyes. "Come home, Mum, you're tired. You can rest now." Eris raised her sidearm, trembling. "You're not her, but I remember her," the child replied, stepping forward. "I remember everything. The day she died. The song you sang when you buried her. Even the promise. You whispered, 'I will never let them win.'" The voice twisted, warping into something deeper. "You made that promise. And so did Rowe, and every human that refused to kneel. That promise echoes across dimensions." Nix's hologram flickered. "Captain, the ship is reacting to you. Your memories are triggering shifts in temporal structure. So, what are these things?" Eris asked. "The ghosts of resistance," Nix answered. "Echoes made flesh. This fracture feeds on defiance." A low rumble shook the hull. Outside the bridge window, something moved in the blacker shape so vast. It didn't seem to move as much as simply be noticed. Limbs like countenance, eyes like collapsing stars, and wrapped around its form were chains. Eris whispered, "It's trapped." Nix nodded. Something older than the Valari, older than the humans. They called it the Architect. It wanted Worship, the Valari, gave it blood, but when humanity refused, it changed its hunger. The bridge systems powered up on their own. The ship's AI, long thought lost, activated with a single phrase. Protocol Row continues. Eris turned back to the captain's chair. Commander Rowe still sat frozen, but his hand now pointed at the main console. A set of coordinates blinked, and a countdown had begun. 30 minutes, Nick said. If we follow those coordinates, we'll either escape or break the universe. But if we stay, Eris asked, we become the next beacon. Eris slammed her fist onto the console. We follow the coordinates. They moved fast, through twisting corridors that shifted, and whispered. Sometimes they saw other versions of themselves, bleeding, broken, screaming in loops of pain. One version of Eris begged them to turn back. Another laughed until her face split open. All were memories, or warnings, or both. Then came the chamber, a massive room filled with statues, each one human, each one holding a weapon. Faces frozen, in agony or defiance. Nyx scanned them. They're real, she said softly. Humans from every century, locked in temporal stasis, preserved because they said no. At the center of the chamber stood a machine, ancient, alien, humming with energy. This is the gate, Nyx said. The only way out. Jace suddenly, lucid, stepped forward. I dreamed of this place 1,000 times. It always ends the same. Eris looked at him. How? He looked at her with wide, tearful eyes. We leave, but something follows. The countdown hit 10 minutes. Nyx activated. The gate. The machine surged, pulling in light and memory. The chamber trembled. Statues cracked, and behind them, something screamed a sound that had no origin point, no beginning, no direction. It was the cry of an idea, a fury that had waited for. Millennia, the architect had awoken. Chains snapped. The walls of reality buckled. The gate opened, a tunnel through time and space, flickering with moments from human history wars, births, rebellions, heartbreak. The cost of refusing to kneel. Go. Eris shouted. Jace jumped through first. Then Nyx, her core flickering with corrupted data. Eris looked back one last time. Commander Rowe was gone. In his chair sat a new figure. Her, an older version. Eyes. Hard, smiling sadly. You'll be back, the figure said. One way or another. The architect roared. Eris stepped into the gate. On the other side, the sky was green. 2 suns rose over a ruined city where time moved in reverse and trees sang lullabies. Nyx sparked violently, collapsing. Jace lay unconscious. Eris looked up. Something had followed them. A Valari fleet hovered above dead ships, reanimated by the fracture, controlled now by something else. Something wearing the faces of those humanity had lost. The voice came through every channel at once. You refused to kneel. Now kneel before your own sins. And one of the faces on the screen was her own. The sky cracked. Not in metaphor. Not in poetic exaggeration. Eris watched it split like glass under pressure. Lines of white fire spider-webbing through the emerald sky as the atmosphere trembled. Above the ruined city, the Valari fleet hovered. In absolute stillness, dead ships, rotting metal husks, reanimated by the architect's will. But inside their hollow shells, something worse had taken root. Faces of the fallen, stitched together with memory and wrath. Eris stared at her own. image on the lead vessel's display. It smiled at Hercom, cold, patient. You made a choice, it said. You chose defiance over peace, resistance over survival. This is the price. Nyx sparked violently beside her, her form half faded. Captain, that's not a copy. It's a projection and echo of your potential future. The architect uses memory as clay. She is what you could become. Jace groaned from behind, crawling upright. His eyes bled light. There, inside me, I saw it. The fracture, it's not just a place, it's an infection. Eris knelt beside him. Fight it. We're not done yet. Jace smiled weakly. I remember another version of me. He shot you, betrayed you. I don't want to be him. You're not, she whispered. Not yet. Then the ships began to descend, slowly, purposefully, not in attack, but like vultures landing on a corpse that hadn't realized it was dead. From the air above, thousands of fragments began to rain down small objects, like crystal shards, each humming with strange energy. They landed softly, embedding themselves. In the ground, JSE flinched. Those are seeds. They're planting memories. And then came the voices. 1,000 different screams, whispers, songs, arguments, the sound of every moment humanity had ever resisted. The shards were replaying history, embedding trauma into the earth, rewriting the ground beneath their feet with memory so potent it became physical law. Aris turned to Nyx. Can we escape again? Nyx's form flickered into static. No gate. No fracture access. This is a sealed simulation, constructed to erode your will, designed to break you. Eris looked around. Then we break it first. Jace pointed to the tallest building in the city and old human skyscraper, cracked and sagging under the pressure of warped physics. That was the broadcast tower, back before Earth fell. Eris nodded. Then that's where we send our message. They ran, the city resisted. The air thickened with forgotten grief. Corpses rose, not in flesh, but in essence, figures from Eris's past. Her father, her war instructor, a soldier she'd left behind. All of them saying the same thing. It was never worth it. But she kept going. At the tower, Nyx collapsed. Her core glowed red. I can hold the link open for a few minutes, long enough to transmit. To who? Jace asked. To everyone, Eris said. We're going to remind the galaxy what humans really are. They reached the tower summit. Wind howled, though there was no weather. The sky tore further. The ships loomed. RES found the old broadcast node miraculously intact. She activated it. Static screamed. Then she spoke. This is Captain Eris Vance of the UN's resolve. Humanity never knelt. Not to you, not to anyone. You want to rewrite us with our regrets. Then you've forgotten what we are. We're not made from perfect memories. We are built from the pain we survived. She pressed the transmit. The signal surged, reaching frequencies long outlawed, bursting through the sealed simulation, piercing the veil of reality and across the galaxy. Something stirred on distant colonies. Long dormant human satellites blinked back to life in alien cities. Children whispered stories their parents never told them. In the ruins of old Earth, a broken machine clicked on and played a lullaby. The Valari fleets began to shudder. Something in the echo was wrong. Eris turned to see her doppelganger, still smiling. Bold words, the echo said, but you forget. This is my world now. She reached toward the sky. The stars vanished. The ground screamed, and the tower exploded in light. When Eris opened her eyes, she was alone. No tower, no Nyx, no Jace. Just an endless void, except no, not a void, a chamber, with walls lined with stars that pulsed like veins. At the center, a throne, and on it sat the architect. But it wasn't monstrous anymore. It wore her face, not the echo, not the doppelganger, her Eris, but aged beyond time, worn and immortal, surrounded by memories frozen like statues. You made it, the throne Eris said softly. Now choose, what choice? To become the fire, or be consumed by it? And then a sound faint, distant. Impossible, Jace's voice, screaming her name. She turned. Behind her, a door of light had opened. A gate, flickering, unstable. Nyx's voice rang out, fractured but clear. 10 seconds, jump or stay. Choose, Captain. The Throneress smiled again, and the real Eris ran toward the light. But just before she leapt, the architect whispered in her mind, "You refuse to kneel, but you can still fall." And as she dove through the light, a figure grabbed her ankle, but his eyes were no longer his own. They tumbled together through the gate, weightless, screaming, swallowed by cascading images of 1,000 lives never lived. Eris fought to hold her breath, though there was no air, only memory. She gripped Jace's arm, twisting mid-fall, trying to force his eyes to meet hers. But they were glowing, blank, hollow. "Jace," she shouted, "you're stronger than this." He didn't speak. His mouth opened, and from it came her voice, repeating her darkest thoughts. "I left them. I failed Mars. I watched my daughter die." The architect had him now using her memories to bury him alive. Then snap, the world inverted. They hit solid ground with a jolt. Eris coughed, gasping, her body trembling. The air here was freezing, sharp, real. Above her, a red sky loomed, fractured by 3 moons and a cracked orbital ring. She was back in real space, but not anywhere she recognized. Jace was lying still beside her, unmoving. She crawled over, pressed her fingers to his neck, heartbeat but faint. Nyx's voice crackled to life in her neural link, barely audible, like a dying candle's flame. Partial download complete, fragments stabilized. "I'm here, Captain, but I'm scattered. Not all of me made it through." Eris staggered to her feet. "Where are we?" A pause. Crosspoint 6. Edge of the dead zone. No one's been here in decades. But something is wrong. The architect left it. "Mark." Eris looked round. The planet was empty. No cities. No signs of life. But etched into the horizon in colossal letters, burned into the soil, was a phrase stretching for kilometers. "Stand, and you die slower." Nyx's voice trembled. "They've been here, before us. Testing how long defiance can last before it becomes despair." A distant sound caught Eris's attention. Marching, she turned, eyes widening. A column of figures approached from the ridge. Not ships, not machines. Humans. Hundreds of them. Their bodies were scarred, patched with crude tech, some with artificial limbs made from starship wreckage. Faces tired, sunburned, but eyes burning with rage. At their head walked a woman tall, wrapped in a cloak of scorched banners from conquered worlds. Eris raised her hand slowly. "I'm human, UNS, Captain Eris Vance." The woman stopped. "You came through the fracture?" she asked, voice raspy, unused. Eris nodded. We escaped. No one escapes, the woman replied. You were allowed to leave. You're the bait. Behind her, the crowd began to spread, forming a perimeter. Jace was slowly regaining consciousness, groaning, eyes no longer glowing, but filled with terror. I saw them all, he whispered. Every one of us who ever fought back. They're watching, they're learning. The woman stepped forward. We're what's left. They call us the Standers, because we refused to kneel, and now we can't stop. Eris frowned. What do you mean? They've turned our defiance into a loop. They need it now, to keep feeding, to evolve. Nyx cut in again, voice breaking apart. She's right. The architect adapted. It no longer destroys, resistance it, cultivates it, forces humans into eternal rebellion. To harvest willpower itself. Eris staggered back. So we're fighting, so they can feed. The Standers' leader nodded. Every victory we win, every uprising, every refusal, they harvest the energy of our defiance, twisting it, turning us into the battery for their god. A deep silence followed. Then Jace stood, shaking. So what now? Stop fighting. Lay down and die. Eris's jaw tightened. No, we changed the game. Nyx surged brighter for a moment, her voice stabilizing. There is one thing they fear. Unity, unpredictable, selfless defiance. Not rebellion fueled by rage or trauma, but by love. Jace blinked. Love, Nyx continued, more stable now. They can anticipate anger. They can weaponize pain. But love sacrifice, without hate that bends the pattern. It scrambles their harvest. The Standers began murmuring among themselves. Eris looked down at her hands. Then we use that. Jace turned. How? We become what they never wanted us to be. We fight not to resist, but to free each other. From the horizon, a new light began to rise. But it wasn't a sun. It was a ship. A massive Valari dreadnought, twisted now by architect design. It shimmered like liquid metal, reshaping mid-air, broadcasting a low hum that made blood vibrate. The Standers began shouting, preparing weapons. Eris stepped forward. Don't fire, not yet. The ship's voice echoed from the sky. You refuse to kneel, then refuse to die, now refuse to win. And suddenly Jace turned his weapon on her, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, I can't stop it. He's in me again. Eris stepped toward him, unarmed. It's okay, Jace. I believe in you, he screamed, pulled the trigger, and everything went white. She felt no pain, just silence. The kind of silence that comes after a scream, when the world forgets how to breathe. Eris opened her eyes slowly, expecting death, expecting nothing. Instead, she was standing, alive. JSE stood frozen, arms trembling, his weapon still raised, the barrel smoking faintly. But the bullet hovered mid-air, suspended in a crack of light. Time itself fractured around it. The Valari dreadnought above let out a shriek not mechanical, not digital. A psychic wail, like something ancient had just witnessed something it could not process. Nyx's voice crackled urgently in her ear. Captain, you did it. The moment you chose love over survival, the fracture broke its pattern. You became unpredictable. You became dangerous. The bullet fell to the ground. JACE collapsed, gasping, free. Above, the Valari ship began to twitch, its liquid metal form shaking like a dying insect. A ripple spread outward from the point of collapse, a pulse that turned parts of the sky inside out. Then the dreadnought spoke again knowingly. Now its voice was different. Broken, double quotes. Error, recursion, breached, pattern, undone. The standers dropped to their knees, not in surrender, but in awes light poured from the cracks above. The burning phrase carved into the soil, stand, and you die slower, shattered like glass. In its place, new words blazed, written in fire across the horizon. Love is the last resistance. Eris fell to her knees. Overwhelmed, Jace crawled to her, clutching her hand. I almost killed you, he whispered. And I almost gave up, she whispered back. But we're still here. The stander's leader stepped forward, pulling down her hood. Her face half burned, but unmistakable. Eris gasped. It was Commander Roe, older, scarred, but alive. Roe, she whispered. Roe smiled. You left me behind, but I never stopped fighting. They thought I was broken. I learned to bend, and I found others, survivors scattered through time, space, and memory. The resistance never ended. It just evolved. The sky groaned again as 3 more Valari ships pierced through the clouds, chasing the ripples of instability. The architect had lost control of Roe, tossed Eris a beacon. This planet's going to fall apart soon. You cracked the architect's rhythm, but you didn't destroy it. You gave us a window, one chance, to hit back where it matters. Nyx's voice surged to full strength. Incoming coordinates received. A pulse node deep in the architect's domain. If we really hit it, we can shatter the entire cycle. Jace looked at the beacon, then the sky. You want us to fly into the architect? Roe nodded. It's the only way. One final jump, one final refusal. Eris stood tall. Then let's make them regret ever trying to break us. The standers moved fast. Underground ships, long buried, were activated. Shields flickered to life. Children barefoot, wild-eyed, born in rebellion, handed Eris strange weapons they'd forged from broken memory code. As they prepared, Nyx warned them, one more thing. When we breach the pulse node, the architect will not fight you. It will offer, it will tempt. Its final weapon is mercy. Eris nodded. Then we don't give it the chance. They launched, through a sky lit with fire and memory. Valari ships moved to intercept, but faltered, unsure, as the architect's control. Inside the lead vessel, Eris piloted toward the pulse node coordinates fixed in a place that wasn't quite space, wasn't quite thought. They breached the threshold and entered. The origin. A vast white expanse. Floating moments drifted like constellations, wars, first kisses, betrayals, lullabies. The architect loomed, not as a monster, but as a mother. A voice like warmth, a presence like gravity. You've proven your point, it whispered. You've suffered, loved, lost. Let me offer you peace. Let it end. No more struggle. And suddenly they were home. Back on Earth, sunlight, trees, laughter. Jace walked through a field where his family waited. Roe stood at a gravesite marked Commander, road-eyed with honor. Her younger self stood beside it, weeping. Eris found herself in Aina's room, her daughter, alive, reading a book, looking up, smiling, Mum. You're home early. Eris knelt down, tears pouring. Aina. But something in her hand burned. The beacon, still active. A countdown blinking. 05:04. Aina's smile faltered. Her eyes darkened. You could stay, she said. You've earned that. 03. Jace's voice rang in her comes. I think. It's a trap, a beautiful one. Oh, 2 row, we hit the beacon, now we might not come back. Oh, one heiress whispered, then let's never come back. She slammed the beacon, and the world screamed. Light detonated. The architect howled, its illusions collapsing in a cascade of truth. And just before everything went, Blackurus saw Anna still, smiling, but now crying too. And Aina said something she never remembered teaching her. Something impossible. Humanity never knelt, not even to heaven. Then the stars folded in. Darkness, total and absolute. Not silence, there was a sound here, somewhere beneath reality, a heartbeat, slow, defiant, echoing through the void, like the rhythm of something ancient refusing to die. Eris floated in it, not falling, not flying, just suspended in the aftermath of choice. Then her eyes opened. She was inside the wreckage of a ship, not hers. The architecture was alien curved, organic, pulsing with faint biolight. Panels twitched like muscle. The air was thick with decay and memory. Around her lay fragments of faces she recognized: Jace's rifle, Rose pendant, Nyx's shattered core. But she was alone. For a long time, she didn't move, didn't speak. Her body ached in places that didn't exist. Her thoughts felt rearranged. The architect's final assault had been psychological, spiritual, offering peace in exchange for surrender. She had refused. But at what cost? A low hum began to rise beneath the floor. She stood, unstable, and followed it, limping through corridors of memory wood and bone wire, until she reached the heart of the vessel. There, in a chamber shaped like an inverted cathedral, pulsed a sphere of cracked light. It beat in sync with her heart. She stepped closer. Nyx's voice, faint and fragmented, stirred from within. "Captain, you're not dead. You're in the wound." "The what?" she asked aloud, voice rasping. The wound the architect tried to hide. The scar where the first resistance began. This is their source code, their heart. You're inside their creation engine. Eris approached the sphere, trembling. Through its surface, she saw flashes, millions of simulations, millions of human minds tested, broken, or bent. Some fought back, some fell, but one thing remained constant. The architect had never understood why humanity endured, and now it was unraveling because of her, because she refused to kneel. The floor split open behind her. A shape rose, faceless, humanoid, made of flowing data and failed outcomes. The architect's final form. It didn't speak. It listened, waiting. Waiting. Eris looked at dead in the void. "I know what you want," she said. "You want to reset. You want me to believe I made a mistake." The entity tilted its head. "But I didn't," she continued. "We didn't fight because we hated you. We fought because love doesn't kneel." The entity twitched. Nyx's voice rang out, stronger now. "Captain, you have a choice. Destroy the architect completely. End every simulation, every construct, or repurpose it. Rewrite its purpose. Reclaim it." She stared at the sphere. One command, two outcomes. Destruction meant freedom. No more manipulation. No more traps. No more fractured versions of humanity harvested for their will. But repurposing. That meant taking the machine that once enslaved her people and using it to protect them, to remember them, to carry their resistance into eternity. She reached for the controls. Jace's voice echoed from the memory glass. "Whatever you choose, Eris, do it as you, not who they want you to be." Rose's voice, faint. "Be the myth we needed. Ina's voice, a whisper on her skin. "I'm still listening, Mom." She placed her hand on the sphere and chose. The chamber exploded with light. Not fire, not pain, but truth across the galaxy. The Valari ships ceased, their weapons powered down, their minds unraveled from the architect's grip. On dead worlds, seeds of defiance began to sprout. In dark corners of forgotten colonies, human children looked up and smiled without knowing why. The simulations collapsed not from destruction, but transformation. Eris Vance had rewritten the architect, not as a god, but as a guardian, a keeper of memory, a witness of resistance, and in a quiet field on a resurrected earth. Long after the stars had healed, a girl opened an old storybook. She turned a page, finding an unfamiliar name, Eris Vance, below. It, in fading ink, was 7 words. She was the one who remembered everything. But the girl did not remember learning to read those words. She just smiled and whispered, "I won't kneel either." Somewhere far beyond the stars, a light pulsed once, and a new architect, silent, eternal, began its vigil. The stars shifted, not with violence, but with purpose. Somewhere beyond time, beyond light, beyond even thought, the architect reborn, rewritten, watched over the remnants of a war humanity never should have survived. It no longer harvested will. It no longer fed on defiance. It remembered, and it carried. The last resistance had become its core protocol. Inside the great archive sphere, within a chamber wrapped in spiraling gravity code and humming memory fields, a single presence moved. Eris Vance, alive, whole, and slowly waking. She gasped, not from pain, but breath. Real breath. Her lungs filled with clean aerith air. She sat up in the restoration cradle. Metal petals opened around her like a blooming flower. Light cascaded across her skin. Standing beside her, impossibly real, was Jace, older, smiling, a scar across his left cheek, but eyes still wild with belief. "You took your time," he said. She blinked. "How?" He nodded to the curved glass. While, outside it, Earth hung in orbit lush, blue, no longer broken. "You won," he said. "No," she corrected. "We did." Behind him, others emerged. Ro, walking without her limp. Children, the standers, children running, laughing, no longer hunted. Former enemies working side by side, rebuilding instead of surviving. Eris stood slowly, her legs weak but stable. "How long was I out?" "For years," Jace said. "You coded the architect into dormancy, then rewrote it from scratch. It took everything out of you, but you left us instructions. You left hope." She staggered to the viewing glass. The earth below wasn't the same, it was better. Cities shimmered with clean energy. Forests had regrown, orbitals rebuilt. No weapons, just lights. Life. A child approached her, held out a small, handmade badge. The symbol of the resistance only now. It had a new word stitched beneath the fist. "Guardian." The child looked up at her. "You're real," he whispered. Eris. Knelt down, tears in her eyes. "I am," from above. A voice echoed, not in dominance. "But service. Captain Eris Vance. System secure. Humanity safe. Protocol. Vigil eternal. Shall I begin your recorded message?" She nodded. The child watched as the air shimmered. A message played, her voice, from years ago. "To whoever finds this, we weren't supposed to win. We weren't the strongest. We weren't the smartest. We were the most broken, the most stubborn, and that's what saved us. Not firepower, not tech. Just one refusal after another. Refusal to kneel, to quit, to become what they wanted. If you're hearing this, remember that. You don't need to be perfect, just unbroken. The child hugged her without warning. Eris looked up at Jace. He smiled. You're a myth now. She laughed softly. No, I'm a memory. From the horizon, a massive vessel began to rise. Not a weapon. A ship seeded with growth, code-designed to restore the dead zones, reawaken fallen worlds, and carry the message: humanity didn't just survive. It redefined survival. The architect, now a silent guide, hummed above it all, no longer ruling, just remembering. The last line of Eris's message replayed, again and again, across every outpost, every colony, every soul. Humanity refused to kneel, and in doing so, we taught the stars to stand. And somewhere, in a forgotten battlefield, now grown wild with flowers, a rusted helmet lay half buried in soil. Wind shifted, revealing the words scratched into the side. We stood,